Welcome to Aunty Lou's Hour. If you like this podcast, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.
Glad to finally have you on Aunty Lou's Hour, Mina Kakaiya.
Yay!
You know the first time we met, what I loved about you was your energy. You were just so kind of energetic and fun and happy and I think also the fact that you're somebody living with HIV.
Yeah.
You're from, well, be interested. Where are you from? Like when I
Born
say
in
you
London.
from,
I'm a London girl,
heritage,
but my background's South Asian Indian. Yeah, from the Gujarat.
South Asia.
But
Oh,
born here,
Gujarati.
born and brought up in London. I'm a London girl.
Yeah. You're a woman of a certain age, just like me.
And still looking fabulous, darlings. We're still looking fabulous.
100%. And you know what I love? Like just now we're talking about, talking one's truth and authenticity. So I'm going to ask you, like, you've been living with HIV, haven't you, for a while now? And I don't see many Asian people open about their HIV status. What's your story?
Well, I mean, thank you. I mean, I think, we are out there. I think you've got to remember that HIV doesn't discriminate. It impacts every single type of person in the world, and we know that. And I think that's really important to know that. I think the lack of visibility is often to do with cultural, religious expectations that women and men have, and I think also about sexuality, and I think also the fact it's an STI, so we talk about sexual health, and that's a taboo, I think, for humanity anyway. I think, we talk about mental health as now beginning, we're talking about mental health and well-being, but I think in humanity, the last taboo is going to be around sexual health and emancipating ourselves around all the kind of hang-ups from our cultural, religious kind of conditioning that as a society globally we all have. And so, when we see the instance of global violence, sexual violence against women and men, we know that HIV is still here, it's still there around the world,
So
and we forget that. Yeah.
What was you like, Mina? Like, you're so bubbly and confident and my truth, right?
Yeah.
What was you like before you found out you had HIV?
Like I am right now, but I was different when I got it. So I'll tell you. So I think my bubbiness went away. I mean, I was diagnosed in 2003, 21 years ago. And I was in my 30s, so I was in a time of my life. And I was like, and I was very late diagnosed when I got it. So I had a CD4 count of 11, which is like literally, and I acquired AIDS by that point. So I had all the classic kind of symptoms of AIDS and and I had PCP, which is pneumonia. So I was late diagnosed at the time, and luckily my partner at the time didn't get it, so I was quite relieved about that. And so, by the time they diagnosed me, I was then hospitalized because I had I had all the symptoms, so I couldn't even tell my family at that point. So it took a little. So obviously, because I had pneumonia, I told my family at that point, I've got pneumonia, but I told my siblings, but we chose not to tell my parents. And I think that's okay, actually. I think that, because I think there's certain things you've got to be aware of in terms of culturally, family, but then afterwards I did tell them that I had a rare blood condition, because I think there's certain people of certain cultures and generations where you don't want to worry them too much, but if I'm living healthy, well, it's great. So I think for me, really, that first diagnosis and being late diagnosed, I was so physically unwell because I lost a lot of weight, my hair went straight. It was actually quite traumatic because I was quite physically ill, and I suppose like Louise, as a straight woman of color, it's like you don't think it's going to happen to you, but we forget that HIV is still around, and
Doesn't
it's still potentially a life-threatening condition. But obviously we've got fantastic treatment now, so you can't pass it on, and obviously you can live well with it. I just take one tablet a day, but at the time it was really traumatic. But that journey of diagnosis, it was a journey from trauma to transformation for me, and it was life-changing in the sense that I think I wouldn't be where I am today without it. Do you know what I mean?
Do you know something that's kind of just stuck with me as you were talking, and you said that you was in hospital, you got pneumonia, basically AIDS.
Yes.
Yeah, that's where you were. And when somebody is in hospital, you kind of feel a little bit vulnerable. You feel a little, so, if you're in hospital for anything, you feel a bit
Absolutely. Yeah,
vulnerable,
yeah, yeah.
you feel a little bit scared, you want people around you. The word responsibility comes to my mind because you didn't feel that you was able to say, actually, this is what I have.
Well,
So
I
it's,
was able to actually, sorry to say, because I
you
think
did, okay.
yes, I did. So what happened was when I was, because I couldn't breathe, so I had to go by ambulance. So and then I had to tell my brother and my siblings, because we said as a family we will not tell the parents, but my siblings I did tell.
Ah,
So that
yeah,
was
yeah,
actually quite important to me. Do you know what I mean? And obviously my
yeah, yeah,
friends, and that was fine actually, but it was more the mental shock of it and just being so physically unwell. You know what I mean? Which was really tough at the time. Um, but do you know what's interesting about it is it was it was traumatic, and I think we forget that, even though when I was diagnosed I was told, oh, Mina, you're gonna live, you're not gonna
yeah,
die from it because of the treatment.
yeah,
We still have to remember that people living with HIV still have a condition there's no cure for. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
And so it questioned my mortality. And it's like, oh my God, I've got this thing that if I start taking my treatment, I can potentially, not be here anymore. I can,
yeah, yeah,
and so there's all these questions, and then you're physically unwell. But what was interesting was one of the biggest thing I'll take away from my journey of living with HIV was it was a journey of a love affair with myself. I had to love me
yeah,
again because it's so stigmatizing, and
yeah.
the shame, the secrecy that people hold. And I was like, actually, and I had to go through that myself, and I went through counseling and all that. But I think what helped me was it, because I had to physically first recover, and then mentally I had
Yeah,
to recover. But it was a delay,
yeah,
because you almost go through a sense of mourning and loss,
yeah.
because it's like, hang on, I was Mina, now I'm Mina with HIV, and what does that mean? And there's a kind of so it's like, hang on, I've lost my identity, I've lost who I am, I've kind of separated myself, I've become the disease, not the, you know,
I get that.
not the
Yeah.
Mina that I was. And suddenly then, but what through my journey, I had to kind of almost bring myself back together again, over the
Mm,
years, and say, well, actually, okay, I'm Mina now, living with HIV, and so what? Actually, it's been a journey to so
yeah.
what. It's been a journey of so what, but it's been a journey of bringing myself back again, and that journey of self-acceptance, from denial of myself living with HIV to the acceptance of myself living with HIV. Do you know what I mean? And that was a journey, because I think we all go through that, because it was a sense of loss of
Mm,
myself. Oh my God, that's Mina's gone now, because now I'm a Mina with HIV. But now it's like, okay, I'm just Mina again. So when he said at the beginning, you're so bubbly,
yeah.
whatever. Yeah, I had
Yeah.
lost that. I had lost that, but I had to find it again, because now
Yeah.
HIV doesn't define me like it used to, because it's just a small
Mm,
part of me. And I've always said that, but when I was diagnosed, and for many years, it was a big part of my life, because it was like I had this big label, and I had to remind myself, I had to relearn and refine myself again. I had to find myself again. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's
100%.
what the journey of HIV has been for me. Is I think I'm really glad. I know that I'm going to be controversial, but I'm going to say I'm glad I had HIV, because it's really got me realize who I really am. That actually there's more to life than just the physical. It's about
Yeah.
personal growth, to self-love and your own worthiness, and I'm getting emotional, but it's true, because I think
No,
it's about your own self-worth and
yeah.
knowing your own
Yeah.
self-value. And that's what I teach to everybody now, because I think it's so important that people just are not in love with themselves, and they're looking for the outside to validate them
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
much, that I had to do it for myself living with HIV, because it's so stigmatizing. It was like people always going to judge you, but they don't know you, and it's also made me more compassionate, more, non-judgmental, in the sense that I'm more kind of compassionate generally, about people, and trying to get different perspectives. So it's made me a better person because of it, in many ways, you know what I mean? And I'm more of a spiritual person as well. So Yeah, it's been life affirming, definitely. I have to say, yeah, definitely.
Just amazing. But I know what you mean.
Yeah, exactly.
We've
Yeah,
had similar journeys.
yeah,
Um, ask you, when you first found out you had HIV,
yeah.
did you see many Asian women that you could identify with in the public
No, I
eye?
mean, I think they're probably in my clinic where I am based in London because it's got a South Asian community. Did I see any when I was at the clinic? No, actually, but I knew they were there, but I never saw them. And I think this is the thing is it's about the reason and it's about that invisibility to the visibility, isn't it? And how do we become visible? Because there's a reason why some of us are more visible because we're trying to represent those who cannot be for whatever reason. And there's nothing wrong with that because it's reminding ourselves that it's okay to be who you are and with whatever you have, whatever you've got or don't
Because
have.
there's something about loneliness, isn't there? Especially when you first find out,
Oh
like
God,
you're
yeah.
very alone. And I think that we do live in a society where
Mm.
we want to be validated. I say we, I'm talking
Yeah,
about
yeah,
as humans, as a
yeah, yeah,
society. We
yeah.
have social media,
To
we
be
dress a
accepted.
certain
Yeah,
way. We want to
yeah.
be accepted. We don't want to be rejected. But HIV teaches us how to deal with not only your own rejection slash stigma,
Yeah.
other people's rejection slash stigma.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's what makes you either resilient or buckle, actually, because you have to care not you can't care less what people think. You have to care about yourself because they don't know you. And I think that's the biggest thing that HIV has given to me is that I've got to honor myself and value myself anyway. And that's key, actually, because because so what if I have HIV? I'm not going to pass it on
Yeah,
to you. So why you think
yeah,
I'm inferior or scared? You don't, there is no fear now. I mean, thank God. I mean, we think about the 80s and the people who passed, and we're living their legacy for the treatment. I mean, we hope there is a cure, but I think, we can live a normal life. And I think there's a need to normalize HIV, but also to raise awareness about HIV because it's because of
yeah,
that stigma and fear and misconceptions are still perpetuated because there's still
yeah.
that kind of 1980s messaging going on, isn't there, about
What
about
do
it
you
being a
think?
death sentence, that you're infectious and you're going to pass it on, and that's not the
Yeah.
case. You know what I
But
mean?
what do you think about
Mm,
generations now? Do you think
mm,
that
mm.
the stigma is there um in like our generation or all generations? Do you think it's different with the younger people, or do you think it's the stigma is there still with the younger ones? What do you think?
Well, I spoke to my nieces and nephews, and they were fine about it. They were a bit shocked, but they were fine about it. Yeah, I came out a
Exactly.
little
My
while. I
kids
came
as
out.
well. My kids.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. And I think, that I think they're more understanding, but I think it
Yeah.
depends on your cultural reference point and your background and religious and cultural background. I don't think it's about age, it's about your point of reference and your knowledge and understanding of it, I think. And
Yeah.
and then it's about laying those fears, isn't it, really, around HIV? Because I think sometimes if you give people the information, the science behind it, that look, you can't pass it on, because you're on treatment, because your viral load is undetectable, meaning,
Mm,
it's not in your
mm.
system. Some people just won't believe it. And then the people who will.
Yeah.
And I've had, rejections from partners who've just like run a mile. And then I've had 2 marriage
Yeah.
proposals with my HIV as well. So, you know, so,
So you have to say that again.
oh,
You've had marriage proposals.
2 marriage proposals, yeah, since my HIV. And I think that's important to say
Yeah,
that. And I think,
that's
and
important.
I want to say something else as well, because one of my first when I started when I was diagnosed HIV, and then about in 2012 I started peer mentoring with Positive UK. And I remember this, and I was mentoring this one young lady. She was an African lady, and she was like diagnosed for 6 years, and she hadn't told anybody. And this goes back to your question about isolation. It can really
Yeah.
be because it's that fear of telling somebody, if you tell somebody and then they tell somebody else, and that does happen in certain communities, and I've seen stories of people who've told me that, because I think women have a lot more to lose culturally if they've got
Yeah.
children,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And so, you can understand why people are not always open about it. I think we should be, but it's because of that. It's an STI, isn't it? And then there's all the
Yeah.
judgments and the moral judgments that people make, not knowing who you are, and whatever that might look like. But I just remember this one lady that I peer mentored. I'm peer mentored many of as a volunteer peer mentor in 2012, and I remember she came to me in absolute tears, you know, Louise, and she said to me, Mina, am I ever
Mm,
going to get married? Am I ever going to have children? And I
mm,
said, yes, you will. And she was probably in her late 20s, early 30s, I think.
yeah.
And you know what? We had some sessions, and you know, she rang me a year later, and
Mhm.
she said, Mina, I'm getting married to a guy who is,
Ah,
you know, not negative. And then she rang me a year
not
later to say she
positive. Not positive, you
not
mean?
positive, not positive. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was
So it's
negative.
not HIV. Yeah, yeah.
He's not HIV. And then she rang me a year later out of the blue and said, Mina, I'm pregnant. I'm like, oh my God. So do you know what? And I want to share that
Great.
story because we can just
Yeah.
normalize. We can have women and men can have families, can have children
Yeah.
without
Yeah.
passing it on. You know, you can have partner and, you know, a stable relationship. It's all about your choice. It's about what you want. And I think, you know, when I was diagnosed, that U equals U message wasn't there. And we know what U equals U means. Undetectable
Mm.
means untransmittable.
Untransmittable. Yeah.
And you know, so when I was living with it, I was still scared to pass it on, you know, and not, I mean, obviously I had to take protection, but it was always that fear, you know what I mean? And that did
Yeah.
impact me, you know, in terms of my own sexuality, building, you know, looking out for you know, looking for relationships or not looking for
Mm.
them. And I think a lot of women and men go through that journey of the fear of rejection, and you know, and then you know, you kind of go on a date, and it's a bit like any date you go on, you know,
Yeah.
even we go on dates and we don't like men that not our preferences. So if somebody's like
Yeah.
your preference of living with HIV, tough luck, love, because I'm not, you know, that's your prerogative. I'm not going to change your, you know, I'm not here to change your mind if that's not what you want, you know. And so, you know, we all have to be discerning and we all have preferences, don't we? And, you know, so I've had men who run a mile and I've had those who haven't, you know, so, and I've had fun
So,
along the way. So, you know,
so when you first found out, you told your siblings,
my siblings,
and and did you have self-stigma? Like, did you?
of course. I mean, I think when
How
I think
long did
about
that
it
last
now,
for?
sorry.
How long did that last for?
I think I think it was connected to my sense of loss of identity of who I
Yeah.
was and the anger.
Yeah.
So it was a sense of
Yeah.
bereavement and depression and anxiety around, you know, and then because even though people telling me it's all right, I'm like, but
Mm.
I'm not okay. Because I think we
Yeah.
have to give ourselves, it's a process for us to go through. Um, you know, because it was a fear of that rejection. So it's that level of self-worth, you know, that, oh my God, I'm HIV, no one's going to love me or no one's going to accept me. And, you know, and it was suddenly, it just became like this kind of like, you know, bright light that was in my head. Everybody can see it. But then I had to come
Yeah.
around because I think when I remember, and this is interesting because I had that self-stigma thinking, okay, if I go on a date, someone's going to reject me. And I remember the first date I went on with a guy and I told him, he was all right about it, and that was my first date. So I had my own
Yeah.
internal stigma that actually what it reminded me, there are people out there who don't really care whether you got HIV or not, because they'll
Yeah.
like you. If they
Yeah.
like you, they like you. And so that's what it, so that actually changed my internal stigma because I thought, okay, that's a
Mm.
validation. I mean, it was important to have that validation in some way. But because then if I had rejections after that, it wasn't an issue for me. Do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
had ones who like me and we've had relations with anyway. So so I think I've just come to that term that, you know what, each to their own, you know, and I am where I am.
Yeah.
And, you know, you always going to get people who are interested. I remember, and the second guy I dated, I remember he was saying to me, well, I've never met anybody living with HIV, you know, and I told him all about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And he goes, it's fine. You know, so it
You know
varies between people.
what I think is important for people listening to this, if they are not living with HIV,
Yeah,
is if you're finding it difficult to date, or you know, you want to meet someone, you're finding it difficult,
yeah,
you know, as my friend's mother always said, every broom has its own handle. And sometimes you
absolutely.
have to just find the right person. And that doesn't come easy. Maybe you need to work for that. Maybe you need to work on yourself
It is
to get
about
what
working
it
on
is
yourself.
you're looking
Yeah.
for.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, I know you're married, but I'm single, but you know, and that's okay, I think as well, because
Yeah.
a lot of shame and stigma around even women of a certain age being, you know, single as well.
Yeah.
But I think,
Yeah.
why you're not married, why you're not whatever, and it's like, well, no, not really. You know, not everybody
Yeah.
has been married and have kids. You know what I mean? Living with
100%.
HIV or not living with HIV, I think. But I
Yeah.
do think that going back to your point, it's really about how do we normalize HIV actually? Because actually, I'm taking one tablet a day, you know,
Yeah.
and actually I'm very blessed. I don't have any other health conditions, you know, and
Yeah.
thank God, you know, I'm just taking that one tablet a day. And, you know, I know other people, I'm not kind of discriminating, but I'm just saying that there are people with more kind of chronic illnesses that physically impacts them. Not that I'm
Yeah.
judging that, but I'm saying that can be more kind of a barrier. But at least with this,
Mm.
and I'm not saying because there are many women and men living with HIV who have got other health issues as well linked to
Yeah.
their HIV
Yeah.
and not. I think it's just important that we keep ourselves healthily, mentally, and physically. And I think that's what
100%.
HIV has given me, you know, to look after myself. And
Mm.
that's really, really important, I think. But yeah, I think that normalizing it, and that word normalizing is so important because I'm just me, I'm normal like anybody else. So what? I'm just
Yeah.
taking one
Yeah.
tablet. And that's what the really our message I want to give out to everybody is,
Yeah.
I'm just me.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm
So
just
let
me.
me ask you, I've got a couple of more questions for you. So, well,
Yeah.
one particular question.
Yeah.
If there's somebody listening to you right now
Mm-hmm.
and they've just found out
Yeah.
that they have HIV
Yeah.
or any other STD for that matter, what would
Yeah.
you say to them?
I would say it's okay to feel what you feel. Anger, frustration, shame, whatever. The negative feelings are all part of the human experience to feel it, because don't deny those. Because I think
100%.
sometimes we have to be in denial. And I remember when I was diagnosed and I was in denial. But then I had to get access to my counseling within my clinic after 2 years.
Yeah.
And I only had about 3 sessions, but it was holding that. Somebody gave me a space just to hold what I was
Yeah.
feeling and to speak out about it. And that was important.
Mm.
So the advice I would give is own your feelings. It's okay. And don't
Yeah.
judge them, because you're going through maybe a process of loss or anger or bereavement. And that's normal
Yeah.
for anybody diagnosed with HIV, because you feel like you've lost yourself, but you know, and you've got to re-find yourself again. And that's a process and a journey that is individual to each person, I think, definitely. And also, I would say, speak to somebody that you can trust, or a counselor, or somebody, or maybe like a peer mentor, or somebody in a HIV service that you're struggling, if you are, you know, with it. And it's normal to struggle with it, because if you're not, I'm worried, because it's a human
Yeah.
response to a life-changing situation where it can be like quite scary. And get most information you want from it. I remember when I was diagnosed, they would people giving me information, but I couldn't process all that
Yeah. Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
So it takes time. So give yourself time, and you will,
Yeah.
you know, come back together again with yourself, I would say, you know. Yeah.
Oh, Mina, listen, just a couple. We're going to sign off now, but I just wanted to
Yeah.
say thank you so much,
Oh, you're
Mina.
welcome.
I think you're such a beautiful woman, both inside and out. And when I meet you in person, you've got such a beautiful, wonderful, loving energy around you.
So have you,
And
Louise. I want to say
and
that too.
I
Thank
know
you
we
for
just want to
speaking
cuddle
up.
each other every time that we see each other, don't we?
Yeah,
And I really
exactly.
want to say thank you for being so visible, especially as an Asian, a South Asian
Yeah.
woman, being vocal, talking about your truth. I think it's going to help so many people
Yeah.
out there. So thank you so much.
Thank
Beautiful.
you. Thank you. Can I just say one more other thing, if that's
Yeah,
okay?
you
I
go.
mean, just in
Yeah.
terms of an active, you know, I'm an activist now, for the visible activist for the
Yes.
last 7 years. And I do sit on the NHS Clinical Forum to influence
Yeah.
patient voice. And I sit on the GP Champions. This is all part of Fast Track Cities. So some of us, as yourself, you're doing this, which is amazing. So thank you so much, Louise, for giving us the platform to speak up
Yeah.
and to continue to readdress the narrative around living with HIV as that it's just a normal people getting on with their own lives. There's nothing to be scared about, and that's it. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, wonderful. Thank you,
Thank you.
honey. Stay on
Cheers.
that. Stay on the line. Let me just press
Okay,
stop here.
thanks.
Thanks for watching Aunty Lou's Hour. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe.